On this episode of Inspiration Nation, we are going to be looking at an R33 Skyline, and we're going to be showing you all the little problem rusty areas that you may want to look out for if you're in the market to buy one of these really awesome cars. That being said, if you're in the market for an R33, R32, or mainly any Japanese imported car, the biggest thing that you need to be concerned about is rust. Because let's be honest, Japan is an island with 18,000 miles of coastline. It's actually the 6th largest coastline country in the world. The biggest piece of advice I can give anybody that is going to go buy any car, it don't matter if it's from Japan or from right in your home state or 2 streets over, go and look at the car. Sight unseen is just absurd. I can't even fathom going and buying an R33 GTR without putting eyes on it. Yeah, it may cost you a plane ticket. You get there and it's not what you were expecting, but it's a whole lot cheaper to spend a few $100s on a plane ticket to go look at a $60,000 car and make sure you're not getting catfished. And if you don't know what catfished is, just look it up on Urban Dictionary. Yeah. Now let's dig into it. And honestly, you'll only need one little tool. That's a tiny little magnet that you can pick up at any automotive store in any state. They'll be right there on the little help aisle. It's for when you drop that 10mm down in there, you can dig it out of the engine bay. Now at first glimpse, this car proved to be an A1 spot-on car. The doors open and closed beautifully. All the body line gaps were perfect. The hood shut. Everything looked great, but it was all masked and hidden. And at this point, you're probably wondering, how do you hide rust? Well, I tell you, they'll put duct tape over their hole, put some silicone over it, and paint it, hide it behind a rocker panel. You never know it's there. Or they'll fill it full of seam sealer and paint over it with an undercoating or some kind of rubberized underbody panel spray. Honestly, these cars are bringing so much money that over in Japan, I mean, they'll do anything they can to patch these cars together to ship them over to us in the US or across the world to get top dollar and hide all the scary bits. Now, the first thing you're going to do is give the car an overall inspection. Interior clean, paint clean, does it look good? And then you need to look into the more problematic areas. On the R33, shock towers. For some reason, the shock towers on these cars rust out extremely bad. This one is probably one of the worst ones I've seen. Yeah. So, Wes, roll the cinematics. Now this particular R33 has extremely rusty shock towers. And honestly, finding these parts is nearly impossible. We found some in Australia, but the shipping alone was over $1,500. So this is kind of a big deal if the car is really, if you have this kind of rust, the repair is twice what it would be on an average normal car simply for parts availability, because these parts are obsolete. The only way you can get them is if you find somebody that is cutting these cars up and selling pieces, which is what we luckily found in Canada, was replacement shock towers from another R33 donor car. But with that being said, you got to think of the labor. To replace these shock towers, I'm going to be pulling the engine and drivetrain out of the car. So you need to add that into your repair bill or your skill level. If you're going to try to do this yourself, you need to make sure that you are ready to tackle that big of a job. That's scary, right? And this is what the shock towers are supposed to look like. Yeah, it's a big difference. Now you'll be surprised, they will sculpt those shock towers in Bondo and body filler and paint them, and you will never know the danger that lurks underneath. And I say danger because you don't want rusty shock towers. That is your suspension. That will cause catastrophic failure if you're going down the road and your strut tower just blows out of the hood of the car. It can happen, especially in one that is this bad. And if it is all sculpty and pretty looking and you can't tell, that's where your friend the magnet comes in. You're gonna take the magnet and just stick it. Now, it would not have stuck here. I've already got a little overzealous and my OCD is kicked in, and I've pulled out literal black tape that was put in from the bottom with seam sealer covering all this, and we've wire wheeled out most of the Bondo that they've had. But if you use a magnet, it won't stick where the Bondo is. So the magnet is your friend. Walk around the whole car, checking certain areas, and don't be that dummy that is wondering why the magnet won't stick to the fender on an R33. That's aluminium or aluminum, depending on where you are in the world. Another problematic area is around the rear wheel wells of these cars. Metal, metal, no metal. Well, very little. No metal. There's Bondo in them there quarters. If the magnet sticks, it's not that much there. If the magnet does not stick, there's a lot of Bondo there. A lot of Bondo equals a lot of rust or a giant hole. Or if it's a Southern California car, it could be bullet holes. Use your hand, use your eyes. You can tell if the bodywork just looks just a little bit off, if there's Bondo or rust or anything. Biggest thing is though, use your hands. Reach underneath the wheel wells, rub, say this one feels okay, but I can see there's a little bit of rust bubbling here. So we know there's rust there. You can take your magnet and stick on there and see if it sticks, and that'll tell you if there's a lot of rust or a little rust. Yeah, it's right in there. It's not a lot of Bondo, but there's still Bondo there. You can tell a difference as well if you metal. You hear all the metal in this one? All right, now let's go to the other side where we know there's a lot of Bondo. You can tell, like, sorry, my OCD, I want to pick at it. But you can see the amount of Bondo in it. And if you reach underneath, you can feel it's pretty thick there. There you go. There you go. Yeah, your quarter panel shouldn't do that. Yeah, quarter panel should not do that. And there's your seam sealer that, so, and you don't want to pay top tier price when this is the kind of stuff you're getting. It's not a lot of Bondo, but it's rust underneath. It's just gonna end up falling apart. So this is the kind of stuff, and you can feel that. You can totally reach underneath and feel and see where they've put, like, oh, here you go. Oh, this is a big piece. It's just seam sealer. It's silicone. They just caked it in to fill the holes. You also want to make sure you get down on the ground. Go in some clothes you can roll around on the ground in and look at, because you're going to need to get underneath the car and look at problem areas like this. This is a safety thing. This car is rusted so bad that I wouldn't feel comfortable driving it down the street, much less on a test drive. Now with this car, again, we are going to be replacing all of this stuff. I wanted to show you guys so you know, because that right there is what lies underneath. Now some more problematic areas in this car are in the rear fender wells as well. The best place to start at is in the trunk. Look up in these top corners. There should not be rust up there. If there's rust there, that means there's a lot of rust on the inside. Now what happens is the way these two panels were put together, because this is the inside of your fender well. Your tire's on the other side of this, so it's constantly slinging dirt, road debris, and all that stuff up into that seam, and it basically impregnates the seam with debris and contaminants, which causes rust. It's on both sides, and somebody is putting some kind of RTV to yet again camouflage more problems. As well as you can see the aftermarket spray primer along with the discoloration. This is all rusted seam. I'm gonna have to strip all this and clean all this. More money in your rebuild, so make sure you check all these things out. The lower quarter panels are the same thing. Tires rotating, it's constantly slinging debris and everything up into the fender well and the lower quarter panel. Behind this beautiful piece of GTR cladding is a giant rust hole. Same thing for the other side. So let's recap. You're going to look at an R33 to buy for rust. Carry a magnet with you. First place to start after you did your okay it's pretty check. Check the shock towers, check the rear wheel wells to make sure there's no rust. Lower quarters, the rear what I would call torque box along the rocker panel. It's where your rear suspension bolts into the bottom of the car. Check that area. So do your homework, do your due diligence. Go look at the car. If you're going to spend 40 grand on a 90s Japanese car, take your butt and look at the car in person. Now, if it's overseas and you're importing directly, it's a crapshoot, but if you can get videos and all that, it really helps. My advice is to go look at the car before you buy the car, just to put eyes on it. My homie Car Cult here bought this car. We are going to be restoring it on this channel. He bought the car sight unseen. He got some pictures and the car looked amazing. Interior 10 out of 10. The door gaps, everything was beautiful. The car ran great, and he got it home and started digging into it and realized that it was a lot of rust. We're going to be restoring it on this channel, but I hope this video helped you guys in identifying some rusty areas on a Japanese or honestly any car. A magnet is your friend. Go look at the car, follow the build, and we'll see you on the next one. I seen you totally look right over that subscribe button. You got to click the subscribe button.